A last reel for your ears only. I'm David Alpern.
I'm Catherine Herzog with this news quote. They had a timely timelessness. That was New Yorker magazine cartoon editor Robert Mankoff on the work of veteran contributor Ed Fisher, like one of a princess asking her mirror, "Who is the fairest one of all?" and state your sources. Fisher died last week at age 86. Also dead last week, in vitro fertilization pioneer Robert G. Edwards at age 87, madcap comic Jonathan Winters at 87, and Maria Tallchief, the prima ballerina with Native American roots, at age 88. Now this.
My heart is full because my son is my sunshine.
Get him out of here.
Death is coming for everyone and everything. A darkness that will swallow the dawn.
For the night is dark and full of terror.
Everything old is new again, at least on TV. His favorite series start another season with surprising twists. On AMC's Emmy-winning drama Mad Men, for example, the ever-dapper, if not always fully dressed Don Draper barfs over the death of a colleague's mother as his often dysfunctional crew moves into the tumultuous late 60s for Season 6. HBO's smash hit series Game of Thrones enters a third season with sex, death, and armies of new characters, including a monstrous matriarch played by Dame Diana Rigg of earlier TV's late great Avengers.
Journalist and critic Logan Hill blogs about Mad Men every Monday at the New York Times website, wrote about Game of Thrones' return for the new Rolling Stone, and joins us now for Your Ears Only. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks. These are two of my favorite shows, and they really couldn't be any more different.
Oh, good. Let's start with Mad Men, then. We last left Don Draper where we originally found him, alone in a bar, approached by a woman, though this time he is married to his former secretary, Megan. Viewers were left to wonder if he'd changed his cheating ways. Tell us what we learned about that from the season premiere.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, last season was amazing for fans of the show because for one entire season, he was monogamous. You know, Don actually pulled off being faithful to a woman for an entire season, and there was a sense that just couldn't last. So when there's that brief moment of flirtation in the finale, a lot of people were expecting that the first season, the next season's premiere, would begin with him hooking up with someone else. Instead, for the first 50 minutes of that episode, we assumed that he might actually be faithful again. You know, they have a lovely vacation to Hawaii. But then in the final scene, we find out that he's actually cheating on one of his new good friends and is in bed with his wife. So Don has another secret that he's holding. And we don't really know where this is going to go yet. I mean, there's a lot put on the table in this premiere, not a lot that's resolved yet at all.
Mad Men has always had a dark sense of humor, somewhat morbid at times. In the season premiere, Draper certainly seemed to have a sensitivity to death. Does that explain his barfing at the memorial? Have we ever seen him do that before?
Well, it's interesting. I love that the show's sick sense of humor. You know, I think that it's a show that has bleak, dark jokes throughout. You know, from season one onward. And death has been this recurring theme. If you look at and so treating death in this way that's both very disturbing and often comical. Look at the death of Mrs. Blankenship, the secretary who was hauled out of the office wrapped up in a rug, or Don's friend Roger passing out with a heart attack after playing with two twins in the first season. Don's terrified of death. I think there are these notes all through the last season, moving into this season, where he's kind of struggling with this idea of middle age, and vomiting at those moments, having that kind of physical manifestation of it is something we've seen too. In The Suitcase, which was one of the show's most famous episodes, he goes out with Peggy and they spend a night talking all night long, and then he ends up vomiting in the office bathroom toward the end of the night, and then getting beaten up by his old pal Duck.
Something he also struggled with is the loss of his coworker, Peggy Olson, the ladder climbing ad concept and copy creator. How has that character changed?
Well, she's fascinating. I think it's an interesting shift in the show that a lot of fans are identifying with Peggy maybe more than anyone else in the show. In some ways, she's the most modern character on the show. She's a woman who's kind of come into her own, who enters the office being told that they're not sure. Joan, in the first episode premiere of the first season, says, "I don't know if you can use this typewriter. Don't be scared of it." By the time we catch up with her now, she's running a whole creative division at a rival agency.
Let's turn to HBO's Game of Thrones. Expectations must be very high for this season, as last season ended with what has been described as one of the most elaborate battle scenes in television history. Remind us.
Oh, the Battle of Blackwater is really, it seemed like it almost one-upped the huge franchises like Lord of the Rings. There's a kind of movement in TV that's now possible because of the rise of special effects that we just haven't seen before, and the kind of budgets that HBO is able to throw at a show. That single episode cost tens of millions of dollars and really raised the bar, I think, for what a big episode is going to look like in the future of television. It was just a huge fan favorite because of the battles, the flames, the fire, the dragons, everything.
Well, for listeners who are not familiar with the series, can you describe the basic premise of Game of Thrones, despite its ever-expanding cast of characters?
Yeah, do you have 5 hours? I could map it out maybe.
No.
It's so complicated. Even fans of the show tend to forget subplots. But the basic idea is that it's a story about succession. It's a story where the Iron Throne, the throne from which someone will rule the 7 kingdoms, is vacant, and there's a power struggle to see who sort of will fill that void. And so now you've got rival contingents sprawling all over these various lands and kingdoms with all kinds of various contingents of alliances and betrayals, all struggling for power. In addition to that, you get a whole lot of gratuitous nudity and violence.
TV reviewer Logan Hill writes about TV and movies at loganhill.com and artsbeat.blogs.nytimes.com/talkingmadmen. And this has been For Your Ears Only.